So, to finish off on this, I need to remind you that financial statements are not just for the sake of statements. These are reports which are very important. So let me share with you why these financial statements are important and why these reports are very important in businesses. Are you able to see?
Yeah, Sarah. Zambonega.
Yeah, good. Now,
Mubange Zoom.
sorry?
Mubange ko Zoom bangon.
Guys, this is Murumizaso.
AI.
Murumiza.
If you want, you can screenshot.
Ah, Sarah. Mesa muri mumesa muri na zengorimiza ni group.
You can screenshot or I can share the video with you.
Ah, Sarah.
Okay, take a pen and a paper. Just as you do for classes. This is a Zoom class. It's no different from the other classes. So just take a pen and paper and make notes. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, if you are not able, you can ask for the recording of this meeting because it's being recorded. So you can always remind yourself what we talked about.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so financial statements are for a purpose. And these purposes differ according to the interest of the stakeholder. So the financial statements provide very useful information on a business. And this information goes to people who are interested in that business. So, for example, these financial statements are important to investors. Why are they important to investors? Because they give a record of the performance of the company. So for example, if you have money, you want to find somewhere which company you can invest into, you can look into these financial statements and compare companies. Look at companies that are giving you the edge, the interest to invest. Because mind you, you do not have a lot of money in the world. Your money is scarce. So you want to choose which company you want to invest in. For example, which company you want to buy shares in. Should you buy shares in Airtel? Should you buy shares in TNM? Should you buy shares in Nico? Should you buy shares in Impico? And so on and so forth. In order for you to make that decision, you would need to see the financial statements. So investors need this. Okay? The second group of people who might be interested in these financial statements are bankers, those who can give you a loan. Those who can give you a loan, they will need to decide whether to give you a loan or not. And that decision is made from looking at your performance, looking at your reports of financial performance, which these financial statements are there to provide. Financial statements provide this useful information. So the bankers, the people who can lend you money, will want to look at them. So they want to see whether you will be able to pay back. And we will see later on how do they find that information in the financial statements. How do bankers find relevant information for them to make a decision whether you are a good borrower or you would be a good borrower or not? Okay, so that's group number 2. Group number 2 of people who will find financial statements important for them to make a decision are your suppliers. The suppliers sometimes give you, for example, raw materials for you to produce. You are a business person who is producing something, and you need raw materials. So some people are supplying to you raw materials. So those suppliers usually will supply you and you pay later. And because you pay later, they want to make sure they want to be sure that you can be somebody who can pay, who can actually pay once they give you the goods. So they also look at your performance. Your financial reports will indicate whether you will be able to pay them if they supply you raw materials on credit. A lot of suppliers will supply somebody and say, okay, pay within 30 days or pay within, say, within 90 days. So we have all these suppliers who you have to deal with as a business, and they want to assess you. And the only way they assess you is by looking at your financial statements. And there are things in the financial statements that they will be trying to find to see whether they can make that decision of supplying you on credit or not. So that's stakeholder number 3. So we have investors. Number 2, we have bankers. Number 3, we have suppliers. Number 4, we have customers. Now, customers are the people who you supply your goods to. These people you supply your goods to, in most cases, if they have to contract you, give you a contract, they want to make sure that you will be able to supply. So for example, over a long term, one good example is maybe a secondary school. A secondary school might say, okay, let's give a contract to Clement or to Justin to supply fresh vegetables to our secondary school every day for the whole year. For them to be able to trust you, they must be able to look at your financial ability, your financial, whether you are strong enough financially that you can supply, let's say, 20 kgs of nkwani every day. So your customers also want to see whether you will be able not to disappoint them. You will be able to supply the whole year every day. So they will look at your financial strength. Okay? So that's number 4. Who else are interested in your financial statements? Obviously, number 5 are the tax guys. So MRA wants to look at your financial statements to see whether you are paying a fair share of your tax. So they will check your records, whether you have declared your profits properly or you are cheating. So they will look at your financial statements and determine whether your records are correct. So they are interested in your financial statements, in your financial reports. Another group of people who will be interested in your financial reports are your trade union representatives. When you have a trade union, workers' union at your company, those who represent you when they are going to negotiate with the management, they need to know whether the company is making profits or not. You cannot negotiate for a company to double your salary before knowing whether the company is making profit or not, because otherwise it will be an unreasonable request for the company to double your salary and you know that, and yet the company is not making huge profits. So trade union representatives need to look at these financial reports before they start negotiating for, let's say, 100% salary increase. Tufuna mtikwezere ndarama 100%. You cannot do that if the company is not making profits. So you need to look at the financial statements and you know where you find the data for whether the company is making profits or not. And that is the income statement. There's another group that also need to see these financial statements, to see the information presented. And these are people you compete with, competitors. Because they want to know whether they are performing as good as their competitors. So if you are in the same industry, let's say, for example, the banking industry, you compare yourselves with other banks. So you find your colleagues are making 100 billion profit and you are making a loss. How? So sometimes in order for you to see whether you are performing well or not, you need to look at financial statements of your competitors. So you can ask questions about your performance. You can compare yourself with others. Another group of companies or of stakeholders who want to look at your financial statements are the courts of law. So for example, somebody has damaged your property, or somebody has caused your company to close down for 3 days or for 1 week or for 1 month, and you want to claim for damages. The courts will have to look at, for example, you are claiming that, oh, I make a profit of in 1 week I make a profit of so and so. Now this damage has caused me to close my company for 1 week. So therefore you should compensate for me, compensate the money that I could have made. The courts will have to look at the financial records because you cannot justify your claim out of the blue. They need to be historical records, which these financial statements do, because financial statements actually present what has happened, the past records of the company. So the courts may have to look at whether you should be compensated by how much, depending on what you usually make within a month or within a week or within a day. So courts are also a good example of people who are interested in your financial statements, because then they can reward you fairly if you are claiming for damages. And sometimes these records can also be looked at in terms of whether there is unfair trade competition or unfair trade practices or not. Another group relates to regulators. Regulators, for example, we have Fair Trading and Competition Commission. These regulators, they look at whether somebody is making unjustified profits. So they will compare whether your prices are fair and whether you are making an abnormal profits, looking at how the others in that industry are doing. So if you are doing some unfair competition or relative to others, then the regulators can tell you to stop or correct your practices, bring you in line with the others. So for example, if you want, sometimes some companies will just buy off others and create a monopoly. Regulators will make sure that you do not reach a situation where you create a monopoly, unfairly buying off other companies so you can be alone. Lastly, maybe last but one, is the issue of prospective employees. If you are looking for a job, you don't want to find a job with a company that is not stable, a company that is likely to close down. So financial statements can tell you, you're looking at the historical perspectives of that company, historical records. Company E has been there for the last 10 years and it has been making profits like this, and it is steady growing. It's a company that you would be interested to join. So, of course, a lot of employees do not check provided apesenchito. But in most cases, good employees will look at whether this company they want to find a job in is a stable company or not. Otherwise, you just say, I cannot apply to join that company because its records are very poor. Now, the last is about managers. Good managers are spotted by looking at the history of the companies that they were managing. If you have been a manager for a company and that company has been doing well for the past 10 years or whatever, other companies will be interested in you. Other companies will want to grab you because you have shown to be a good manager and they would like to have you so that their company can also benefit from your skills. So financial records can actually help companies to recruit the best people who have had a proven record of good performance in managing an a business. So now, in summary, what have we been saying? We have been saying financial statements, they exist to provide useful information to a number of stakeholders. So financial statements are important to a number of interested parties. Now we have listed how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then the 11th one is the last one I talked about, hiring good managers. So you can see that there are so many individuals that can benefit from these financial statements. So far, I would like to ask you if you have any question, if there's anything that I should explain better. You have all these, and I hope you would be able to explain in any situation how financial statements are important and to who. Anybody who has not understood any of these stakeholders, the explanation I have given? Okay, I am assuming you are all okay. Can somebody respond?
Bwino bwino pitirizani.
Okay, good. Now, these financial statements present a general picture of the performance of this company. Now, each interested party looks for a particular information in any of those financial statements. Remember, there are three main ones. There is the balance sheet. There is another financial statement, which is the income statement. Sorry, I'm hearing a lot of noise somewhere. Hello? Tazimisa ni pampu yo. Taseka ni pakomo. Unisogoneza. Seka ni pakomo hapo. Seka ni hapo. Unisogoneza ni chipachi water pump channel. Sorry guys, sorry. Now, each stakeholder will be looking for a particular information in any of these financial statements. I was just counting them. 1 is the balance sheet, 2 is the income statement, 3 is the statement of cash flow. These are the 3 financial statements that we have learned. Now, each one of them has some records that any of these stakeholders can find useful. So before I continue, we have less than 10 minutes. When we finish, we will break for 6 minutes and I'll log in again so we can finish today's lecture. Because we are on trial Zoom, so it gives us 40 minutes each time. But because of logistics, we could, I logged in and most of you were not there. So when you came in, there were only 30 minutes left. So let me finish these 9 minutes. When I am disconnected, don't worry, I will reconnect after 6 minutes or so. Now, in order for each of these stakeholders to find useful information, they have to make some calculations themselves in most cases. So the calculations, most of the calculations they make are what we call financial ratios. So what is a financial ratio? A financial ratio is a relationship between 2 or 3 or more records or numbers on these financial statements. Let me come again. Financial ratios are a relationship between 2 or more numbers or records on these financial statements. That's what financial ratios are.
Sir. Come again on financial ratios.
Financial ratios are a relationship between 2 and or more numbers or records or data on financial statements. So you take 2 numbers, find the relationship between these 2 numbers, or you take 3 numbers, find the relationship between these 3 numbers, and that relationship is called the financial ratio. And these numbers, you take them from the financial statements, and you see the relationship between these 2 numbers or 3 numbers. That's how you define what is financial ratio is. Okay? So one example is a bank. Let's say a bank. A bank is looking at these financial statements and they want to see whether you as a business can pay back the loan if they give you the loan. So they have to look at these financial statements and find something that will save them. So for a bank, for example, what is their concern? Their concern is that you will be able to pay back. Okay? So they will go in these financial records and find 2 or more numbers or records and see the relationship. So banks will look at how liquid you are. Do you have the cash? What is your cash flow? So they will look at your cash flow statement of cash flow, for example, because they are interested in knowing whether you have monies to pay back loans, because loans are repaid every month. So the numbers that they will be looking at for them is, for example, they will take your current assets or liquid assets versus your liability. So they will calculate a liquidity ratio. So they are taking these numbers from your balance sheet. They will look at your liquid assets. So they will take the cash, current assets divided by your current liabilities. They will find a ratio there. That will be a financial ratio. It's a relationship between your current assets and current liabilities. So now you develop a ratio because you have divided your current assets by your current liabilities to find a ratio. And that is a financial ratio. And they will make a decision based on that. Are you able to pay back? Are your liabilities too much that they exceed your current assets? So that's one example of how financial ratios are used and how a stakeholder such as a bank will go into your financial records and define and calculate things in there, derive their own ratios and make a decision based on what they find. Because the financial statements do not present ratios. Financial statements just presents a record. The ratio is calculated by you. So the banker will calculate its own ratio. The investor will probably be calculating what we call profitability ratios. So you can see which company is more profitable than the other. So for example, the investor might be calculating the profitability in terms of how much does this company sell in order to make a profit. So profit over sales or income over sales, because profit is income according to this income statement. A sale is not an income per se. Okay, so they will calculate that. Now, for example, suppliers, what we'll be looking at, we said suppliers, they want to see whether you can pay. Once they supply you the goods on credit, will you be able to pay them within 30 days? Will you be able to pay them within 50 days, depending on their policy? So a supplier will also look at your financial statement and calculate something. So will they go into the income statement, or will they go in the cash flow statement of cash flow? Where does it show? Which statement will give them the figures that they want to see whether you are liquid enough, whether you generate enough cash on a daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis, so that you can be able to supply you, to pay if they supply you goods on credit. So you as a supplier, you calculate your ratios and assess that company. So we can go on and on and on. Equity investors, they are more about long-term. They want to see whether, long-term their share values will grow, will appreciate, and whether in the long term this company will be able to be declaring dividends. So they will be looking at, for example, your long-term earnings and power to generate earnings over a long time. And there are records in the financial statements which will be able to be used to calculate the ratios that you want. It may not be from one year, it might be you comparing the financial statements over a period of time for you to build up a trend. Your financial ratios will show a trend. The financial ratios like this 5 years ago, it was like this 4 years ago, it was like this 3 years ago, it was like this. So you can be able to predict and say, oh, this is a good company. I can invest my money in this. Anytime will be cut short, but don't worry, because we have less than just seconds, will be cut short. So I'll log in again, use the old link to join, and join after 7 minutes. Okay, so these investors or interested people all have their own things that they will look for in the financial statements.